Today's show is sponsored by the ABV Barrel Shop. The ABV Barrel Shop is located in the St. Louis metro community of Arnold, Missouri. The ABV Barrel Shop is focused on one thing: single barrels. Best of all, you can try before you buy. Head over to abvbarrelshop.com to sign up for their email and text distribution so you know what they have in stock, what classes are coming up, and who from the industry may be coming in to visit. The ABV Barrel Shop. It's where single barrels live. We are also sponsored by the Bar to Go. The Bar to Go offers traveling minibars that are no bigger than a small purse or toiletry bag. Best of all, they are fully customizable so you can create the perfect piece that is unique for you. If you own your own business, what a fun and unique way to promote what you do. Check them out online at thebar2go.com. That is the number 2 in the Bar to Go. If you have wholesale questions, call my friend Isabel Clark at 504-481-1297. Finally, we are sponsored by the Neely Family Distillery. NFD is a family-owned business that keeps ringing up awards in the spirits world. Head to Sparta, Kentucky to experience the family history, award-winning spirits, and meet the Neely family. Check them out online at neelyfamilydistillery.com. Now, on to the show.
Let's drink!
Welcome to the Bourbon Daily, the podcast about everything bourbon delivered to you every day of the week. Today on the show, I speak to Jerry Dalton about his new book, The Way of Bourbon. My name is Steve Akeley. Please join me in welcoming my special guest, Jerry Dalton. Hey, Jerry, how you doing, man?
Doing fine, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, excited to have you. Looking forward to chatting about the book, what's going on there, and how that's been going. It's a really cool thing. I know you've been doing a little media, and you even you're on social media these days. So, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. For right now, I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame, and what's life been like since that? I mean, that was last fall, just last September, and what have you been up to since then?
Well, I put a lot of time actually in putting the finishing touches on the book and getting it out. And other than that, I've done a couple of little talks around town. My mobility these days forces me to pull it in pretty close, but
Right.
I'm trying to get back in the saddle a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah, exactly. But it is nice to kind of reconnect, because we know that you were a caretaker for your wife in her final years, and which is a very admirable thing. The fact that you were there for her to support her, as you knew she would be for you if the roles were reversed, and but it takes you totally out of bourbon. So I would assume one of the nice offshoots of being in the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame is that the opportunity to reconnect with some people that you probably haven't seen in more than a decade, if not even way longer than that. So that had to be unique, huh?
Oh, yeah. Of course, you were there, but seeing some people that, in fact, one or two that I literally thought, for obviously incorrect reasons, I thought that one or two of them had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
If they had, their ghost looked awfully solid. But I really enjoyed seeing those folks again, the ones that I got to talk to a little bit.
Yeah. It is a wonderful event, isn't it? It's celebrating, achievements in the world of bourbon, and just being part of that is a special thing, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I was absolutely amazed. Back when I retired in 2007, and in fact, my last day at work, I think they were doing the equivalent of the Bourbon Hall of Fame back then, and it was taking place under a relatively small tent in the side yard of the Beam House, and not that many people. So it was amazing to me to see how big an event it has become.
Yeah, that is for sure. It is really a big thing. And I would love to see them take it even a step further. They've got some space, and maybe it's a totally separate, dedicated space. But at some point, I would love for them to be kind of like other Hall of Fames we see, like from the world of sports, where there's memorabilia and artifacts and, something from every inductee and things like that. Not only biographies, but if it's possible, personal effects and those type of things. I think bourbon fans would love that. I know I would. It's a great way to connect with the past of this industry, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there's so much history and heritage. There ought to be something almost anybody could come up with, like
Yeah.
perhaps strip stamps from the old early times.
Yes. Yeah. You gifted me with that after we came out and shot the movie, and that was unbelievable. That is hanging in my office today at my store, which is pretty cool stuff. And it's just hard to believe something like that made it through. You think about how delicate those are, Jerry. Tax strips from pre-prohibition, and the fact that they made it this long. You feel like, at this point, I don't really own them. I'm just a caretaker for a while, and that needs to go to my daughter, eventually. And this is a piece of bourbon history in itself, right?
Yeah, and it's amazing. Of course, I'm sure that in the 100 years since those got printed, they were in a protected environment most of the time. I was amazed to see them looking like something that got printed last week. And,
Yeah.
those are definitely real bona fide 100-year-old pieces of paper.
Yeah. It what it says to me, though, which is kind of a cool thing, Jerry. Obviously, you got those when you were working at the distillery, and you hung on to them, and you cared for them while they were there. You made sure that they were protected under your watch, and it just says to me, though, that you are a fan of that history. You're a steward of the bourbon industry, and I think that's pretty cool too, because not everybody feels that way. For some people, it's just a job. It's just a work, no different than I worked in trucking and transportation, and am I passionate about that to this day? No, but you're still passionate about bourbon, which is a very neat thing, I think.
Well, absolutely. And you can tell if you've read even the first part of the book. I bear down on some of the historical writing. I have the good fortune to have copies, they're reprints of old distillers' manuals, and I study those as much as I study the more modern stuff I have in my files.
Yeah. Yeah, Jerry, today, very different than when you were distilling. There's about 2,800 distilleries spread out across the United States. And it is amazing to me. You can kind of tell the ones who have good products. There's no coincidence here. It's not accidental how these things happen. The people that I know that are really good distillers are still reading those old manuals and things like that. They're still learning from the past. They're not turning to YouTube and seeing what's a recipe I can use and how do you turn the still on and then I'll just operate it. No, they're learning old ways of production and following the things that people used to do to make great whiskey, because it makes sense. How do you make great whiskey today? Well, let's look to the past, because they made great whiskey in the past. And I think the good distillers are still doing that, which is awesome.
Well, I totally agree. And every once in a while, I have a blinding flash of the obvious. And it's obvious to me that we're still doing the same thing they were doing 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're just doing it with more modern equipment and more computer controls and better testing.
Yeah.
But fact is, nothing has changed in the basic process.
Yeah. And many people have tried
to.
Yeah, it shouldn't. But many people have tried different things to speed it up and all that, and you can't. It's just, what works is the tried and true traditions of, aging whiskey, and you just can't change that. And yeah. Anytime someone tries to cut out a step or speed things up, for every action there's an equal reaction, right? And those things tend to be on the bad side, and the whiskey's not as good. It's just not as good as what they make the old-fashioned way. So really cool stuff.
Well, you're reminding me of the joking definition of government work, which is, if it ain't broke, fix it until it is. I think some people are fixing the distillation process.
Yeah, I agree. All right, what we'll do next, Jerry, we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back on the flip side of that commercial, we're going to talk about your book. We'll do that in just a few. Okay, let's talk about the people that make these shows happen. First up is the Stave and Thief Society. Via their in-person class at Moonshine University in Louisville, Kentucky, the Stave and Thief Society is the place where you, a bourbon enthusiast, can expand your knowledge and emerge an executive bourbon steward. In 2017, I completed my executive bourbon steward certification. It's the most comprehensive bourbon certification available and connects you with an expansive network of bourbon enthusiasts and professionals. Check out the full listing of in-person and online certifications and join the society today by enrolling at staveandthief.com. Speaking of executive bourbon steward certification, the ABV Barrel Shop in St. Louis, Missouri has developed a unique partnership with the Stave and Thief Society to offer a preparatory class to assist you in getting your executive bourbon steward certification. This prep class costs only $25 and is available to take live or online via Zoom. Graduates of our class receive a coupon code good for 15% off your executive bourbon steward certification held in Louisville, Kentucky. This saves you almost $90. Additionally, you can collaborate with fellow attendees to split travel costs when you go to Louisville. If you're interested in signing up for the class, simply head over to abvbarrelshop.com and check out the classes and events page. Last but not least, we are sponsored by Neely Family Distillery. Royce Neely is the 11th generation distiller in one of America's oldest distilling families. A visit to Neely Family Distillery takes you through family history, where you can see all the artifacts and newspaper clippings through the years from this family that started distilling in America after James Neely arrived from Northern Ireland in 1740. Today, Royce Neely and his team are crafting some of the best spirits in America. Their bourbon and absinthe offerings keep winning top honors in the spirits competitions. Recently, their absinthe made history as the first platinum winner in the absinthe category at the San Francisco Spirits Competition. Neely Family Distillery is definitely a bucket list destination if you are a bourbon.
I am Stephanie McNew. You are listening to the Bourbon Daily. The real name of the palisade is an ampersand.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Steve Akeley sitting here with Jerry Dalton, and we're talking about his new book. And Jerry, tell us a little bit about the book itself. What would you say a summary of it is?
Actually, the summary of it is it's a distillation. You should pardon me. It's a distillation of my 20-odd years in the business. I watch what's going on around me and make mental notes, even if I don't keep written notes. And the result is, when I start writing all these things down, I went, holy smoke! I just wrote a book. So it comes from being in the distillery. And while I'm tooting my own horn, I got to say there's a couple of things about this book that makes it unique, as far as I can tell. One of them is that it's written not by an expert or whatever else that you might call yourself. It's written by a distiller, and it's written from the inside out, not the outside in. Another thing is it's really dedicated to the whole process of bourbon making from beginning to end, as opposed to it's not a tasting notes or this bottle's better than that bottle. It's dedicated to the process that underlies both good and bad bottles.
Mm-hmm. So how long were you working on this book? How long did it take you to do all this?
Oh, gosh. Actually, I got asked that question. And my answer is it took 20 years to write it. As far as actually working on it, I probably have been working on it on and off the last 5 years with a lot of offs, because there were demands at home that were much more important to me than anything I could write on a piece of paper.
Right. And as you talk 20 years, you're talking about your practical experience, the living the distilling life, the things that then allow you to create this book. But when you decide you're going to turn this into a book, and again, it's a process that takes 5 years with starts and stops. So it's not like just sit down and you're working on it every day. There's long gaps where you're not working on it at all. But do you start out with an outline? What's the process, Jerry? Or do you just write it kind of and piecemeal it together?
Well, actually, a large portion of the book is outlined for me because if you step back from reading the pages, you realize that you're seeing me talk about grain, talking about grinding it, talking about mashing, fermentation, distillation, and aging. And all that is the bourbon making process. It's also the outline of the principal parts of my book. The only reason I hedge that a little bit is because there's a pretty good sized chunk of history in it. And there's also what I refer to as the hidden way, which is also, I'd say, unique in my approach to process.
Mm-hmm. Going back and revisiting all of this, was that a fun process? Was it fun to get all this stuff down virtually on paper? Ultimately, it does come out on paper in the book, but kind of getting your thoughts together and putting all that down was it kind of like working?
Well, I think John Denver had a song called "Some Days Are Diamond and Some Days Are Stone," and that's pretty much what writing, serious writing is. Some days the words flow out of your pen onto a piece of paper, and some days you have to sort of slap yourself upside the head to get anything to come out.
Right.
But all in all, it was a positive thing because it helped me to crystallize my thinking about the whole process.
Yeah. And writing is something that is not new to you. When you left Beam, you published a book, and while your career was going on, you wrote for some publications and things like that. You wrote some various articles and stuff like that. So this isn't new to you, and is it something that you plan to continue on with too? Do you plan to continue to write more and things like that in the future?
Well, I will devote some of my time that I have left to writing. I stumbled on to what may be the title of my next book on the Facebook page. I proposed that I was going to make posts on there, and I was going to call them Nips, Sips, and Snorts. And I defined those terms as carefully as I possibly could.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to write precisely that. Little short things that are just mostly fun, and sort of medium-sized things that are informative. And every once in a while, I'm going to write a snort that's going to put everybody to sleep except a few real aficionados.
Well, that's the audience that you've got here today. So, if you're listening to a bourbon podcast, more than likely it's more than just a drink to you. You're not going and getting your weekly bottle of Jim Beam White Label, shopping in the liquor store, and then turn on a bourbon podcast on the way home. That's for the people who are kind of the next level, the fanatics almost, the people who enjoy travel and going to distilleries and meeting people like you. So yeah, you've got the right audience for that. So you'd be surprised the number of people that want to read that kind of stuff, Jerry.
Oh yeah, I was amazed when I started researching sometime about the time the KDA was deciding to bestow the Bourbon Hall of Fame honor on me, and I found a statistic that was amazing to me that, and I think last year, maybe 22, I don't know, but one of the last 2 years, there were 2.2 million visitors to the Bourbon Trail. And that's 2.2 million serious people. And some of those people are even more serious than a casual drive-through.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting because, bourbon had started to turn around around the time that you were in it. Booker No certainly, got things going. And so you were part of that, but it's just different today because bourbon fans are so well educated. There's serious discussions that sometimes happen, and you did these sort of events. This again, that's not you went out into the community and did different events. But imagine these days someone who wants to know, some of the science behind it and things like that. That they're really into the nitty gritty, and that's how today's bourbon fans are.
Well, I'm actually glad of that because that's precisely a chunk of the audience that this book is aimed at. I don't want to just, as I said, there's no real tasting notes in there where I say this bottle is better than that bottle. But I'm talking about the things that you have to pay attention to make sure that you're going to have a good bottle to put on the market. Lord knows there's plenty of tasting notes, and I wonder some of those seem a little perhaps superficial to me. Some of them I'm sure are deadly serious, but I couldn't find much of anything that was devoted to how do you actually do that and how was it done in the past.
Yeah. The KDA started what is now known as the Bourbon Trail, which ties together, the distilleries in Kentucky and kind of, has a website to promote visiting them all. And they got a book, a passport, if you will. You get stamps and things like that. And, kind of bourbon tourism really has taken off, and that's a huge part of and you talked about the 2 million plus people coming to bourbon country these days. But tell us a little bit about tourism back in your day, because you retired right about the time that the KDA is kind of getting this thing going. Were there people that coming by the distillery and were like, hey, I'd like to have a tour, can you guys show us around? And how did you guys handle that before there was like an official program, and almost every distillery now has some sort of tourist setup thing, so where you can take tours?
Almost from the beginning of my tenure in the business, there were people coming by. Early on, it was more people who were writing books about bourbon and about whiskey in general. But as time wore on, I saw more and more crowds of people that were just people who were interested in bourbon and not particularly working in it. They were interested in it. So I think there was a shift going on from purely, I don't know what to call it, pragmatic people who were there for a reason. And as time wore on, it became people who were bourbon aficionados who really wanted to know about bourbon, and they were just ordinary, everyday on the street people.
Yeah, yeah. So I think people definitely are interested in the book. It's called The Way of Bourbon. You can get it on Amazon. You're now active, and I know your daughter Christy helps you out with Facebook stuff and things like that. But you have a presence out there now where you actually put together posts and things like that, and so people now can find you on social media. Correct?
That's right. And by the way, I'll freely and happily admit that you were instrumental in that presence. I didn't even know if you'll remember. First conversations we had, you asked me about the signature craft series that Beam had put out, and I told you were ahead of me. I'd never seen it. I didn't even know it was on the market. So. Thank you for that again, by the way, Steve.
Heck yeah, buddy. It's I couldn't believe when I got to meet you for the first time. We were talking about that. I assumed that you knew, but I didn't realize you kind of at that point you had to be totally out of the industry and didn't pay attention even to the point that a product that you uniquely crafted was out there, and it really was groundbreaking. You see the vision that you had now with the benefit of hindsight, because that's commonplace to experiment with different grains and things like that. You can't name any other distillery that was putting out products and doing those sort of things. And the story of you, being able to do that, and you had to do it at a certain time of the year, kind of when everything was shut down, and just fascinating, my friend. Really, really cool.
Well, back to that notion of not knowing the product was out, I can honestly say we put those experimental mash bills in the warehouse, and I tasted them all when they were White Dog, fresh off the still, and I tasted them again, and I can't remember, but I think they had been in the warehouse maybe 3 years. I had them pull samples, and I tasted them again, and then I retired. So when it came out on the market as an 11 or year or so product, that tells you for 8 years I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to think about that. So, very cool. So again, the book available on Amazon, and you also do the Kindle too, right? It's like you can get an electronic version of it. Correct?
Yes, it's out. It came out in Kindle before it came out in paperback. I have my daughter to thank. Truth is, if it hadn't been for her, it's something more than just help. She was instrumental in getting this book put together, both in the Kindle version and the paperback. If she hadn't done what she did, we probably never would have seen the light of day.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. And a project you can work on with your daughter. How neat is that? And hopefully it opens you up to the idea of you got some more books in you and you continue to put some more out. Okay? That'd be cool.
Well, I'm going to keep working until I can't work. So
Fair enough. All right. Well, we'll wrap this one up as we always do. I am available on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Steve Akeley. Of course, I've got a website, steveakeley.com. Check out our website, abvnetwork.com. We keep all of our previous content out there. We've got multiple interviews with Jerry if you want to hear more about him and his career, or even the first show where he wasn't on, but I talked about his career, and he ends up finding that online and reaches out to me, and that brings us together and starts this great friendship, which is pretty cool. And we're many years into that now, which is very, very neat thing and pretty darn special to me. So there you go, Jerry. That's it. As you want to come back on anytime, or maybe if you want to come back later in the year as we get closer to the holidays, I know certainly there's going to be people buying it now, but later in the year they could forget that something like this is out there as they're looking for that perfect holiday gift. So let's plan on doing this again, okay?
Okay, absolutely.
All right, for our audience, we'll have a brand new show for you tomorrow. Until then, take care, everybody. See ya.
Thank you.
Peace. Before we let you go, let's talk about one last thing, the ABV Barrel Shop in the St. Louis community of Arnold, Missouri. The ABV Barrel Shop is focused on a couple of things. First of all, single barrels. We are the place where single barrels live. We go to distilleries, taste through the whiskey, select the best barrel, and have it shipped to our store where we present it to you, our customers, by allowing you to try before you buy. We're also known for the classes that we have in our education center in the store, as well as the events we have with industry professionals from the bourbon business. If you are in the St. Louis area, please come by and visit us at 6 Fox Valley Center in Arnold, Missouri. Or at a minimum, at least sign up for our email and text distribution so you know exactly what's going on in our shop over at abvbarrelshop.com. This is Steve Akeley, owner of the ABV Network, signing off. We thank you for listening to our programming and truly appreciate your support.
The Bourbon Daily is part of the ABV Network. For more information or to become a sponsor, please visit abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and cheers.
This has been a Steve Akeley production.